Welcome to another episode. Man, I am excited, so excited for our guest today. He's a friend of mine and really an inspiration. We have Kevin Shah as our guest today. Kevin is, from the music world. And as the listeners know, marching band is my original passion. Music is my original passion. And Kevin is like mega rock star icon status over here. So I'm so grateful for his time today. So Kevin, I'm going to give you a brief bio and you can find out more. And this link is up on YouTube and on our channel as well at projectrisemusic.com. I mean, I'm just going to drop the mic right here. Kevin got his degree in percussion performance from Juilliard School of Music, which if you're not familiar with that, there is no school more prestigious, more renowned for like literally the best musicians in the world than Juilliard. Kevin's percussion focus is in the marching world. Currently, he is the front ensemble arranger and sound designer for the Carolina Crown, one of the best drum corps in the world. He works with the best marching organizations and is also just an incredibly nice and insightful guy. So Kevin, thanks for your time today. Welcome aboard, man.
Thanks, Rob. I'm super excited to be here with you.
Yeah. So let's just dive right in. I mean, you're, one of my passions about interviewing really successful entrepreneurs is to learn about their start. How did you get started? Because that's where I find my passion is helping people, get to where they want to be when they feel like they don't know how to do it. And so many of, if we have some music listeners, they're going to get a lot out of this, even if you're not into the music scene. What Kevin has done, what all the entrepreneurs do is still so applicable. So how did you decide, this is what I want to do, like percussion, music at a high level? This is what I want. Where did that come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing was I was just always have been passionate about music and percussion. And, my parents have pictures of me playing tabla when I was 2 years old at my birthday party and just sitting in the corner and not enjoying the party, but just wanting to play tabla. And so it's something that my parents definitely encouraged and nurtured as I was growing up. And then, when I was in high school, I definitely found a lot of camaraderie and belonging being in the music program at my high school. And so naturally, there was a part of me where, yeah, I was doing all the school things and trying to get good grades and get into good colleges and stuff. But there got to a point where I was like, I just really love doing this. Like, can I make a living out of being a musician? And so that just led me to really go after it, and then as I went through college and I got my music degrees and was attempting to play an orchestra, there was a lot of serendipity to what I'm doing right now. A lot of it was I'm just really passionate and I saw potential areas where I thought I could contribute. So I just raised my hand and said, hey, give me a shot. Let me try this.
Yeah.
And things just kind of snowballed. So that's like a really, 1,000-foot view of some of that path.
Yeah. Wow. So even just from a super, super young age, music was just in your blood. That was your passion.
Yeah, I think it's something that if you're excited about it, there is some level of, we all have to work, right? Like everything there's a challenge. Like anything anything requires building. But if you're passionate about it, that's a lot of times what it takes to get through some of the hard stuff, because that passion is back there brewing. And so knowing exactly that you have something that you really want to get out of bed for and something that you're really excited about.
Yeah.
Finding that within yourself is like, it's really hard to channel that or like make that up if you're going into an industry that you don't feel great about. So if you can find those things about yourself that you're really excited about, I think that is a natural fuel for building a business.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And I think, the phrase that comes to mind for me is when people are like, man, I never worked a day in my life, because they're so passionate about it. Now for you, and I do want to circle back to college because I want to hear the story about like, what was it like auditioning and preparing to be in like the most prestigious music university in the world. But you've built a really incredible business. You write for the best organizations out there. You've built a substantial business in an industry that's really very hard to break into. I mean, the marching music world, it's a very niche thing. Like you and I mean, I'm sure you'll agree with me when I say we could probably count on like two hands the amount of people that exist that actually make a full-time living at this thing. Like it's a very, very small, but if you can break into it, it can be incredible. So as you've built something so substantial here, you're able to help so many people with your education and your music. Do you feel like you never work, or are there certain parts of your day that are like, man, I love what I do, but this is a grind right now and I don't really feel like doing it, because when your business is your passion, like I know for me, I have some of those days when I write, but what's it like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would be lying if I said that there aren't times where it feels like a major grind. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that this is part of being an entrepreneur or your own boss. It's like it's a point of pride, it's a badge of honor, but it's also like a double-sided sword there, because you can work when you want. You can take a break whenever you want. There's no one really telling you
Mm-hmm.
what to do, when to do it.
Yes.
And so if you let yourself get into this mode of you're just going to be constantly putting out fires
Mm-hmm.
as they appear, it's easy to get sucked into that trap. And I've found myself in that trap many times. And
Mm-hmm.
there is this like constant, so it's not the actual work that ends up being the thing that is frustrating. It's like the how you manage yourself,
Yeah.
right? Like, how do you manage all of the things that you want to do? You get to take on as many clients as you want or as little clients as you want, right? And so there comes a point in your career where you're growing and you're building and you're saying yes to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say yes to more things and you have more credibility and more notoriety and more visibility, more people want you to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
And there comes a point where you realize that the diminishing return of the time and effort and energy that you put in, right? The things that put you on the map in the first place,
Yeah.
they start to diminish and suffer. And so
Yes.
you hit this kind of breaking point, right? Like it's kind of like a sine wave where you have this upward trajectory and then you get to a point where you just don't have any more bandwidth
Yes.
and the thing starts to suffer and something's going to give. Is it your own mental health? Is it your own level of balance? Is it your product? Is it your relationships, right? And so that was probably a major part of my 20s and early 30s, is like hitting the crest of
Mm.
just having all of the opportunities and saying yes to everything.
Yeah. Man, you're so right. I don't remember who said it, but like when you're launching, it's about, you say yes to everything, and then as you become really successful, you wind up saying no to most things. And I believe it was Warren Buffett that said, for every 100 great opportunities that come his way, he says yes to like one of them, like something along those lines, which is true. And that's the hard part, is as you become more successful, is saying no to to good opportunities. The first time you and I met was in a bar in Dayton, Ohio, after a big percussion competition, and I knew who you were, and I was like, man, I'm gonna go. All right, I'm gonna talk to him. Oh, it's Kevin. He's here, man. I'm gonna go talk to him. And I remember we spoke, and you were really gracious with your time, and you recommended a fantastic book called Anything You Want by Derek Sivers. And I still have this, and I remember you talked specifically about the hell yeah opportunity, that every gig should be a hell yeah opportunity, because number one, you're going to be excited about it, you're going to put yourself into it, and if you say yes to too many like opportunities, you're kind of closing the door for the bandwidth that you have. And I think as an entrepreneur, and you already just hit on this, it's a balance, right, of like, because when you just need money and you're building your business, like you can't afford to say no, right? You just got to say yes. And it's that line of like building. I think it's a great destination to build to the point where you're now able to say hell yeah to the opportunities that come your way, which clearly you've done. So, I mean, how long have you been at this thing? Like, how long did it take you to to get to the point from starting your business of music composition? And so you write music actively, and then you also have an incredible website where organizations can purchase music you've previously written. So you have some passive income and some active income. How long did it take you to get to the point where you're like, I'm doing it? Like I can, my head can hit the pillow at night being like, I built something sustainable here. Like what did that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually started, there's a lot of serendipity in the way that a lot of these things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we would all love to say that everything that we've created is super intentional and really well thought out and really well planned. And a lot of this is just right place at the right time kind of things where, you know, I had finished grad school, and so I wanted to be an orchestral percussionist. So I was in the process of just taking auditions or preparing for auditions, right? And you know, the way that it works is maybe 3 or 4 positions open up a year, and so you're just practicing all year long and maybe hoping to get an audition and maybe hoping to win an audition being one of the 300 or 400 people that apply, right?
Right.
So there was a point as soon as I had graduated, I had decided that that was the life I was going to live, at least in the immediate present moment.
Yeah.
But I needed to make money. I needed to survive. I needed to do something. So I did have this skill of marching arts. Like I had marched, I had taught a little bit before I went to college. And so while I was living at home, just trying to figure out how I'm going to, you know, take the next step in my adult career,
Mm-hmm.
I just picked up a couple gigs through friends and was like, hey, I'm available. I can do some teaching on as a part-time thing. And as I started doing those, they kind of just started multiplying, like, oh, hey, you're doing this. You're doing a good job. I like working with you. Can you work with me over here? Or can you work with me over there? Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Hey,
Yeah.
do you know how to write music? Oh yeah, I write music. Like I play around with these different applications.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to kind of do it. Like you say, you know how to do it. You don't really know how to do it, right?
So you have an opportunity, so you're going to take
you
it.
have an opportunity, and
Yeah.
and some of the opportunities that I had initially is just like kind of low stakes, or
Mhm.
I don't know, like you're just doing the thing, like you're just making a thing,
Yeah.
and there's no real stakes other than just show up, make sure that the kids are educated, that you're responsible, and you create a great environment. And the music that you make, you're just doing it out of passion, out of your own almost like innocent ignorance of what
Yep.
what you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you don't have any illusions of grandeur. I don't think I'm a film composer or anything. I'm just, you know, teaching high school band. And so, but as you get better and you keep doing it, you learn new things, you interface with other people that are doing what you're doing, you get excited about things, you
Mm-hmm.
build your arsenal, you learn more skills,
Yeah.
you get more opportunities, you take some risks and you try some new things, you get some people that notice you, and you say, hey, give me a shot, I think I can do this. And there came a point where even I'm a percussionist, but I did want to explore writing for winds a little bit, even though I'm not a wind arranger. Again, it's that like
Yeah.
the innocent ignorance, you know,
Yes.
like just like, okay, I think I could do that. Like,
Right.
you know, you know, and that's one random thing that I think is important to kind of bullet point is this feeling of like we always stop ourselves from doing things because we assume that we can't. And that's
Yes.
something that you have when you're maybe a little younger. You have this like innocent ignorance where you just like, oh, I could be an astronaut. Yeah, no
Mm-hmm.
problem.
Yeah.
And there it requires like as you get older and you take more risks. I personally have felt that too, where I shut myself off to potential risk because I default to assuming I can't do things, right?
Right.
As opposed to defaulting to, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
And so long story short, I started writing for some wind groups. And at the end of these processes, I would have these MP3s of shows that I'd written. And so, you know, kevinshah.com. I was like, oh, let me learn how to make a website. I made a website and I put it on there and was like, hey, look at this stuff that I made. Cool. I'm learning like internet. Yay.
Yeah.
And, and so when I would meet people, I would like tell them, hey, check out my website. Look at this thing that I made. And
And
that
real quick,
turned
just to
into,
backtrack, like what year was that when you were roughly like when you were building your first website? Do you remember?
oh, probably around 2007, 2008.
Okay. Yeah.
maybe
So
around there.
yes, that was like exactly about the same period. You know, I graduated from grad school in 2007, and I remember doing my student teaching like during prep time, working on my website. And for the listeners that are listening to this, you know, probably if you're, you know, late 30s and up, you're going to be able to understand what we're saying. But for maybe some younger listeners where right now it's like, oh, there is no shortage of software and applications that can make stunning websites, like gorgeous websites for a $25 a month subscription or something. But when you or I were getting our start building websites, there was nothing like that existed, like zero. If you wanted to build a website, you know, you had to pay someone like at least 5 figures to do it. Or I remember having a book called Dreamweaver for Dummies, and Dreamweaver was like one of those websites. And I, you know, just like trying to, so if you're listening and you're like, oh, building a website, like that was a big deal in the early 2000s. Like building a website, that was not like, oh, let me just hop on WordPress and like that, you know, it was not a thing, man. So like props to you for, you know, actually being able to do that.
Yeah, it got to the point where it was just like a clip art website. It was probably just like the equivalent of a blog where you
Yeah.
literally just go on there and like I type and then that's the website.
Right.
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 Yeah, like I could upload an MP3 and then if I wanted to put another show, I just keep typing and it's like, it's just,
Yep.
like a note.
Right.
And so I got to the point where people were like emailing me or calling me and saying, "Hey, I saw this show on your website. Can I buy that?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I don't know. Sure. I don't know what cool. Send money. I send music,
Yeah.
like it was very like, I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. So I got in touch with a friend of mine who referred me to someone who had built a website for them, like for
Mhm.
their music publishing.
Right.
And so I called the guy and I was like, "Hey, can you literally just like make the same thing for me?" And he was like, "Yeah," because he had a template for it.
Sure.
He might have charged me like $500 or $1,000. And
Mhm.
like, I remember emailing back and forth with him. It was like, "Okay, well, what's the name of your company?" I was like, "What company? Don't you have a company?" I'm like, "No, it's just."
It's just me, dude.
So I literally like that day, like LegalZoom, I just went on LegalZoom and like $800 started an LLC. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
this guy says I need a company. So I made a company. And it was all like that. Like I was literally just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just trying to do the next step.
Yes.
And so he built, and like, if you go to projectrisemusic.com right now, that site, I believe went up in 2011.
Mm.
And so 2011, 2012, I think. And so like I'm celebrating the 10-year anniversary, and that literally is the website that he built for me,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's been doing what I needed it to do,
Yeah.
which is just be a repository for the shows that I write,
Right. And that's tough.
and
Like when, you know, I mean, for my framework, Impossible to Fail, like the cornerstone of it is getting a blueprint, right? From someone that's accomplished what you're trying to do. And something that I talk about in my book and on social media and on my YouTube channel. You know, you and I really we're in the exact same industry. I'm a wind guy, you're a percussion guy, right? I write for the winds, you write for the percussion. And for that industry, like there is no blueprint. You know, like I mean, the vast majority of entrepreneurial endeavors today, you can get coaching programs and online. And even now, even today, there are a lot more people that are doing what you and I do and are attempting to do it at a high level. So there's, you know, like I remember when I was, because we're about the same age, like when I was, you know, early 2000s, like really trying to figure out how to make this work. There were really like probably 2 or 3 people on the scene at the most. And all you can really do is look at the finished product and guess your best onto like, how do I do that? Like, that's what I see. How could, like, I guess that's what I'm going to do. I need to do what they're doing. But, you know, these are like icons that like live on Mount Olympus. Like they're just magical, mystical figures. You can't really get in touch with them. So there's definitely something to be said here about the trials that you went through of just figure it out, man. Like just figuring it out as you go and not, I'm sure there was some fear there, but not being afraid to be like, I don't exactly know like what I'm doing, but I see opportunity here and I'm just going to go because if I mess up, I mess up, but then that'll lead me to learn what does work. because it's not failure unless it's permanent, right? If you make a mistake, you're like, oh, okay, well, now I know how to more efficiently sell my music online and now I'll make more money next time. Then it's a learning experience, but you didn't have a blueprint. You were just like put your head down and just figure it out.
Right. Some of it was literally because people were asking, hey, how can I get that? And
Yeah.
so a lot of what exists right now is literally just made because of people's requests to
Mm.
get the thing that I was doing. Right. And so a lot of the learning process came from that back and forth. And that, I think that is the other tricky thing that exists now. Like you said, that anyone can go and make a website now and make it look amazing
Mhm.
and have product on there that looks amazing. Um, but there is something interesting about the order of operation in which if someone is asking you for a service and then you're building something to serve them
Yes.
versus you building a thing and hoping other people need it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a huge Grant Cardone fan. And in 10X rule, I don't remember the exact words, but it's basically something to the effect of like, if you get a monster opportunity and you're not exactly sure how you're going to fulfill it, you say yes. It's okay to not know what the path looks like, but guys like you and me and a lot of our listeners out there, like if you have the right mindset and the right work ethic, you will make it happen because you've made a commitment. And you're not the kind of person that's going to make a commitment and not follow through on it. So you have no choice but to figure it out. And I've had many opportunities like that, whether through, music or business, where you got this monster opportunity and your first gut check is like, whoa, like new territory. I'm really comfortable over here on this side of the pool. And that's a whole part that I don't even know about it. But you know what? Like, I know I need to take advantage of this opportunity. I know I need to. And that's where, one of the 4 fears that I've classified, we have fear of imperfection, fear of the unknown, fear of judgment, fear of sacrifice. And I think that fear of imperfection and fear of the unknown, those combination, when those 2 things come together, like that's brutal, right? When you're like, okay, I have this opportunity, I don't want to mess it up, and I've never done it before. So those 2 things, that can be very paralyzing for people. But what you did is exactly what I prescribe. You just took action and you put that fear aside. You just took action, which over time has led you to be one of the names in the industry.
There is a reciprocity to this feeling of when someone asks you for their help and then they pay you,
Mhm.
right? There's this internal feeling, even if it's like $1, right? There's
Right.
this feeling of, oh, okay, they're paying me money. I'm going to help them. And so when someone does give you that opportunity to say, hey, I want to buy something from you, or I want to hire you for X, Y, and Z,
Mhm.
there's this internal feeling of like worth that pushes you,
Yes.
past even with passion. Like it's one thing for me to say, oh, I don't want to do this gig because I don't like it or not like it. But there is a level of respect for someone saying, hey, I like what you do. I want to be a part of what you do. And I
Yes.
want to pay you for your efforts. Like
Yes.
that, there's no better feeling in the world than to have that be fuel for what you need to do. And
Yep.
so there is that part of it is, I think that's a little, it's tricky because I think, you were talking about like, there doesn't really exist a ton of blueprints for what specifically we do within the marching arts and building businesses and
Mhm.
stuff. And I will say that is a void that I am trying to fill, quick little plug at prmworkshops.com. I am coaching other designers
Mm.
to kind of build their own voice and build their own careers. And
Right.
part of that is helping them realize that the opportunities are out there.
Mhm.
So not worrying about getting opportunities, but like building yourself up so that when the opportunity arises, you're there to like deliver above and beyond. So that when someone says, I'm going to pay you $1, they feel like they got $100 back,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That's like a no-brainer for you and for them, because that that can be that has exponential growth potential.
Yeah.
But if you're creating a situation where someone feels like they're giving you $100 but getting a $1 back, right? For lack of a better analogy, like that's where things start to fold. And so if everyone is going out there looking for opportunities, sometimes if you're not focusing on building yourself, when the opportunity comes up, it's going to hit that dead end,
Yeah.
right? You're not ready to give them tenfold of what they are expecting.
Right. You need to build your skill set as you're growing your business and your vision, right? Like the mindset doesn't matter if the skill set is not there. And there's definitely something to be said for building that skill set to the point that when that opportunity comes up, you're positioned to at least be able to start taking advantage of it and have a good ending point when the project is done.
Right. And just like this, the fundamental base, like mission, like putting a part of your own personal mission of like over delivery, like putting over delivery as like a tenet of how you operate
Yeah.
as a, whatever it is that you do in your business. It's like you want people to feel like I get so much from this relationship.
Right. And you and I have spoken previously about that. Um, People, consumers of, whatever it is that you do as an entrepreneur, whatever problem you solve that people pay money for, people can really tell if you're not enthusiastic and passionate about what you do. They can tell if it's just a business and if they're just another line item on a spreadsheet and you're just churning and burning, clients versus if you really have passion about what you do. And something you and I have spoken about is, your level of meticulous nature for your music. And it can be easy for composers and arrangers and publishers that feel a pressure to put out so much music, because obviously the more music we have for people to buy, the more money we can make, right? They have more options to choose from. I mean, my income has dramatically scaled as I put more, shows on my website, and I'm sure yours has too. And there is that temptation to be like, you know what? I could write something that's going to get the job done. It'll be good enough. The audience will like it. The members will like it. The judges will like it. Let me just knock this thing out and have another thing on my shelf that can make me a couple $1,000 a pop. But that is not okay with you. Like, you are not okay with putting anything less than what is your absolute best. You've described like each piece of your music as a work of art, and that's something that you can't possibly even fathom putting it out for public consumption unless it is the absolute best you're capable of and you will not compromise. Can you elaborate on that level of commitment that you have to your craft and how has it affected your growth? Like, some questions that come to mind is, because I feel very similarly about mine, and I'm always interested to hear how other people in that creative space, because it's very interesting where, in the real estate world, which is another business that I own and a big, part of my life, there is some creativity, but really it's mastering a skill set, having enough experience that when a unique situation comes up, you've been there before. There can be some creativity to like how we might go about saving a transaction or something, but for the most part, it is a skill set versus what we do in the music world. It is a creative skill set. Like, there's a misconception out there. Like, people think like, all right, I'm just gonna sit down at the computer for 8 hours and write original music. Like, no, it doesn't. Like, when you're in a creative space, there are so many things that go in to producing something substantial, something amazing, something that sounds great, that works great, that's going to get the job done, and that the creator feels really good about. It's not easy to do. So how has that level of commitment that you have, how has that affected your business? Do you feel that it has allowed you, and maybe it's a combination of things, like some questions I would have, like, do you feel that it is one of the factors that has allowed you to climb to the top because your stuff is just always exceptional, nothing less? Is there any part of you that wonders, like, maybe it's inhibited some growth because maybe if I was okay with just like putting something out there that could still work, could I be for financially, like, what are your thoughts on how your level of commitment has affected, your growth and acceleration?
Yeah, this is a huge question, so I'm going to try to parse it out a little bit.
Yes.
I think it. Let me just start by saying that I don't think that I'm putting stuff out in such a way where I'm like, okay, well, this is the best thing ever, period. And so,
Right.
if I look at the music that's on my website currently, it's kind of a time capsule of my growth over the last 10, 12, 15
Yeah.
years.
You sure get better
So
at
there's
something as you
definitely a deeper level of quality that is more recent than when I first started out, right?
Mhm.
And so it's not necessarily like the end product that I'm concerned with as much as my mental state while I'm creating, right? Is we're going to be less ignorant as we get older and wiser, and we're going to have more tools and resources. We're going to have more knowledge. Technology is going to evolve. There's going to be new ways of thinking, more efficiency, right? There's
Mhm.
going to be ideas that I had maybe early on that maybe were great ideas. I just didn't have the skills to realize them to the fullest
Yes.
potential, right? And so that's something that you get better at over time. And so I think that I might put out stuff right now that I'm really, really proud of, and that I am like, man, this is the best thing I've ever written. But maybe 10 years from now, I would look back and say, oh man, my heart was in it, but
Right.
maybe my skill could, like, now I know way better, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one caveat. So I guess my whole point there is, and it kind of circle back to the whole hell yeah conversation, that it's a hell yeah or a no.
Mhm.
I found for me, and this is very personal, it might be different for others. I found for me that I'm a very emotional creator. Like, if I'm not emotionally invested in the thing that I'm making, and I start to slip into the just phoning it in or rocking it out mode, not only is it not like the best work I think I could do, because I'm fighting those emotional qualities. I'm human.
Right.
I'm okay admitting I know that about myself.
Yeah.
So it's not only that, but then you start thinking about it, and like there's a compounding effect that happens. So for every one of those that you do where you're like, my heart's just not in it, I don't really love this, and you just start to build a little bit of resentment, and then that compounds, right? And the more gigs that you take like that, at least in my opinion, for me, I'm just not, my mindset as I'm doing those projects is not great. And we talked about that reciprocal nature, right?
Right.
And that's what the hell yeah is about as well. It's not just about
Mhm.
you, it's about the work that you give to somebody else. And that's the main reason why for me it's a hell yeah or a no. Because I know for me, if it's not a hell yeah, I'm not going to be putting in my best passionate full on
Yes.
energy.
Yes.
And you have to recognize that. And there might be people that can like just grind it out and just rock it out and put out the best possible work. And I have immense respect for people that can do that. I just know that about myself.
Yeah. And as as a creator, you have to know that. I mean, it took me a really long time. Like, I built my music business standing on marching while I was still teaching. And that was a real challenge, to be able to stay emotionally invested after getting home from like 8.5 hours of teaching kids and dealing with all that stuff. And then as I was able to quit teaching and do it full time, and now I'm cranking out a lot of music, really figuring out like how to structure my day, how to get myself into that creative state of mind, and figured out like sometimes if I'm just not feeling it, knowing just when to be like, all right, I just got to shut it down. Otherwise, I'm just going to stare at the screen and be pissed off that I can't create something, and just feel bad about myself and get more angry. It takes a lot of time and serious introspection and reflection to learn, as a creator of something for money, how to create something that you can really be emotionally invested in that still gets the job done. Um, and I applaud you for being able to understand what that is for you and be able to stick to it, because obviously it's allowed you to reach incredible levels of success while maintaining, your integrity for yourself.
I will follow this up with, I think what one thing you just mentioned is really important, is this at times is being an entrepreneur. I mean, most of the time it can be a lonely endeavor, right? Not
Mm,
only just sitting in your cave and getting the work done, sitting in front of your computer and making sure that the font is right and the
hmm.
colors are right and all of that stuff where you just sit and you grind and slave away at it. The the thing that helped me a lot is having other people around me that
Mhm.
are partners and
Yep.
colleagues that I work
Yep.
with closely to share, like, to commiserate in this process, right? Because
Yes.
I don't go to an office. I don't have coworkers per
Right.
se, but I have other partners and other close confidants uh that I've aligned myself with over the last 15, 20 years. And even in my membership, when I'm kind of coaching, and one of the biggest things that people say to me when they're first starting out is they feel alone. They
Hmm.
feel like they don't have someone to bounce ideas off of, to share frustration, to
Hmm.
share roadblocks, right? And to have a sense of that community.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like the how to do things, like you can go online and figure that out.
Yes.
Like anyone, if you just like actually literally just look and go, you can learn anything you want to learn. Well, then if that's the case, why isn't everybody just super, super successful?
Right.
This part of it, like the having community, having accountability, having people that can help you through struggle, I've found is the biggest missing link that a lot of people are experiencing in what they're as they're starting out.
Yes.
Because everyone that's starting out in what I do, like if they're trying to do what I'm doing, they're way further advanced in terms of skill, technology available,
Hmm.
resources,
Hmm.
opportunities, like all of those, they're always going to be higher than where you
Yes.
started out.
Yes.
But it's that human connection and just like really getting your hands dirty together has been a huge, I find like a magical missing link.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that, I mean, that's so important to have, whether it's accountability partners or just a mastermind group, people that you can, um, that you can develop community with, that you can bounce ideas off of, because being an entrepreneur can be devastatingly lonely. I recently joined a really incredible all men's mastermind group, and that too has been very, I mean, I just joined it about a week ago, but we went to an in-person event, and it's been incredible to be able to have other high performers to bounce ideas off of, and to feel like you can relate to people, like especially I mean, obviously I support entrepreneurs of all genders and races and all that, but being a man and the supporter of my family and the sole income earner, it really felt good to be in, this huge Airbnb mansion with 25 other guys, and a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them family men and sole income earners, and to be able to ask them, like, how do you handle this, that, and the other thing, and this pressure or this type of situation? It was so relieving, and that's why, you have to have a coach, a mentor, a tribe, a group, surrounding yourself with as many people as you can that will, A, positively contribute to your life, but B, be like a no judgment sounding board that you have open communication with, and permission to be vulnerable when you need to be, to say, like, hey, like, here's what I'm going through, like, can you help? Or like, have you been through something like this? Or even just someone to vent to, or to sharpen each other's swords. That's essential to keep improving.
Yeah, that validation factor is huge, right? Both validation on when things are going well, or that something that you made is actually like, oh man, that's awesome. But
Yeah.
also the constructive criticism, right? Because how many times have you made a thing and you post about it on social media? I, Out of curiosity, I would probably say 99.9% of the time, no one's going to respond with critical feedback. It's
Right.
all usually going to be, this is great. That's
Good for
awesome.
you. You're
High
amazing.
five.
You go.
Right.
Yeah.
But I want to hear from the person that says, hey, I'm not sure about, right? Because
Mhm.
there, and not online, like not online.
Right.
I don't want to,
Right.
I'm not in the comment section, right?
Yes.
But I'm talking about like having someone that you can send something to and say, hey, what do you think? Give me your honest opinion. That is huge because you have to respect the fact that it requires a significant amount of vulnerability on both parties' ends,
Hmm.
right? To receive constructive feedback, but to even give constructive feedback, knowing that you might be emotionally impacting someone that spent a lot of time and energy on something. And but
Hmm.
to feel like you have a bond with someone to just say, hey, I think you should try X, Y, and Z, or you could look at it like this, or this isn't hitting me the way that that maybe you think it's hitting me.
Yeah.
Like, man, that's the biggest thing I've learned, how to have that emotional conversation with both myself and my trusted partners.
Yep. Absolutely. And not being afraid to ask for that criticism either, because I think a lot of people don't want to hear it. They say they want to hear it, but they really don't. I see it all the time when I coach new business owners, new agents on my team, coaching new people. We have an expectations conversation as part of our onboarding call. So I can understand, how do you best receive information? How do you want me to communicate with you? Like how transparent do you want me to be with you? And everybody, on a scale of 1 to 10, how honest and transparent do you want me to be with you? Oh, Rob, 10, man. It's got to be, I'm a 10 out of 10. No doubt about it. Okay, cool. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to be rude or demeaning or disrespectful, but it just means, hey, when you're doing something great, I'm going to be the very first guy to tell you, you're doing a great job. Here's exactly what I love about what you do, and keep doing it. And when you're doing something that's not great and that needs correction, I'm going to tell you, hey, this thing that you're doing is not working this way, and here's exactly what you need to do to, get back on the right course. And it is amazing how many people say they want that 10 out of 10. And when it comes time to be held accountable, they really don't. They really don't. And being able to reflect on your own performance is an undeniable characteristic of high performers. Brendan Burchard's High Performance Habits is a book I recently finished. It's absolutely incredible. And in one of the chapters, he talks about the fact, he is literally like the most well-paid, world-renowned coach of high performers of all types. And there is a undeniable common thread that high performers evaluate their own performance on a regular basis. And things you do regularly, you get used to them, right? So if it's the first time you're ever taking a long, hard look at your profit and loss statement, or your metrics, your accountability, or if, you're one of my clients, I'm coaching on health and nutrition and weight loss, and it's like, hey man, like you didn't stick to the plan this week, and here's the results that happen. That might be tough the first time, but as you do it more and more and more, like you not only grow to tolerate it, you grow to enjoy it, because you realize that level of self-accountability is what is like one of the main things that's going to keep you progressing. And high performers statistically will self-reflect and evaluate their own accountability infinitely more than someone who is not performing at the level that they want to, because that's the only way you get better. Right? Like that is literally like the definition of how you get better at something. Like you mess up until you keep getting better. And so, being able to go to those people and say like, hey, be critical of my music. Don't just tell me, hey, this is great. Like be critical of it. Like as obviously something that's contributed to you.
I wonder if sometimes it's fear of emotional labor versus the actual labor, right? There's times where, for example,
that is deep, man. Yes.
If someone says, hey, I don't like X, Y, and Z, are you thinking about, oh, that person doesn't like me, they don't like what I stand for, they don't like my aesthetic, they don't like my approach? Or is this an internal battle of, oh man, I gotta like spend another day working on this?
Yeah.
So is it like emotional labor or is it physical labor? And everything you just talked about, like the accountability part, I can see how there's a lot of things that we might not want to do because the emotional toll that it would take on us to address those things is more significant than the physical labor of doing that work.
Man, that is deep, man. You hit something there, dude. That was, wow. That was awesome. You're so right about that. And I think people in all industries, especially the creative industry, like we are our product. I have a really nice all brass pen here, right? From Grove Made. If I'm making a pen, like I'm making a pen, I might have a lot of pride in the pen. If I'm making music, whoa, that's like an extension of my soul, bro. Like, and so to be able to say, hey, I'm not saying you're an idiot. I'm saying this part of the music that you produced just needs a little tweaking. Or if I'm coaching an agent and I'm like, hey, you did a great job on this part of the script, but you didn't really nail this part here. Don't take that personally. I'm not saying you're a bad person. just saying, the product that you produced needs some work. And that's another thing that entrepreneurs, the high performers are able to delineate that. They're able to separate that and say, like, this is not a personal assault. This is just me getting better.
Yeah,
Right. But
the way that I've been able to traverse that, and it's taken a while to kind of have some concrete feelings about this, and like even think about it because it's such a nebulous topic, right? Like
yes,
art. Are you an
yes,
artist? It's like
yes.
I think everybody is an artist. You just have to find your brush, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that when I'm actually writing, that's me. Like I have to put on the page or in the track or in the music that I'm writing, it has to be an extension of what I
Mhm.
like what is natural to me, what my instinct, what I would love to hear.
Mhm.
And then once it's done, in a way, at least for what I'm doing, it doesn't belong to me anymore, right? Like, so the gift that I'm giving to the client or the students or my colleagues or the program or whoever I'm writing the music for, the gift I give them is me. But
Mm.
once I give
Yes.
it to them, now it's ours. And
Mm.
that was a really big, like, I have to have that compartment in my head because once you give that gift, right, like they have it and they're holding this thing and it's like, okay, cool, like I'm gonna put it over here by the plant, and it's like, no, that belongs on the, the mantle. It's like, well,
Right.
you gave me this gift,
Right.
so
I
there has
paid
to be
for it. You
some,
gave it to me. Yeah.
well, yeah, there
Right.
has to be some level of like, and so how I shift that for me is once it's out there, right? Once it's written,
Mhm.
now I want that gift that I give my client to make them feel awesome, to make them do the things that they wanted to do in the first place, to
Mhm.
give them all the joy that they imagined they would get. And
Mhm.
so that's why I'm like, I try my best to be the ultimate team player once it's done. Say, hey,
Yes.
whatever we got to do to fix this, to make this moment work, to like really get the feeling, to get the emotion,
Yes.
or how does your, like, because I co-write.
Mhm.
I write with other people that write music together, right? So I want them to be inspired and I want them to put their best music on top.
Mhm.
And so if that means I got to move some stuff around or take this out or this doesn't really work, I'm happy to do it because once the music is done and it's out there, it's ours. And
Yes.
my goal at that point is to make the other people that I'm surrounded with
Mhm.
feel like this is the most amazing thing that they've ever been a part of. And that whole reciprocity, because I want them to feel like that about me
Mhm.
and the work that I'm doing, right? So it's the be the kind of person that you want to work with.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Man, that's one of the many reasons I love always connecting with you is you're very introspective and you're so insightful and deep uh, with the emotional level of being an entrepreneur and how that affects us. I love it. I love it. I got two more questions for you as we're getting ready to wrap up. Now, one of them being, you are, as an entrepreneur, I feel like we're never really satisfied with ourselves, right? You have a goal, you get there, you're like, that was cool. Never thought I'd be here. Not good enough. I got new goals now. Now, as objectively as I can say, you are, one of the top names in the industry. You've built an incredible career for yourself. You have an exceptional reputation. You work with literally the best groups in the world at what you do. What's next for Kevin Shah? Where are you going from here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a couple different things like on a personal level, I have a almost 1 year old. So
Hmm.
that's this whole next big chapter of my life. I think same
Hmm.
as you, Rob. So
Hmm.
that's like front and center in
Yeah.
terms of like, okay, what is the rest of the
Hmm.
trajectory of my life
Hmm.
centered around?
Hmm.
And learning how that is, because everyone tells you what it is, or oh, now you have a kid, so everything's different. It's one thing to hear that, it's another thing to experience that on a daily growth.
Yes.
So that's a huge centerpiece of what's next for me. And then if you were going to kind of take that and think about how that fits in with business and professional life, I think I'm gonna always want to keep doing what I'm doing and be better at it, and maybe just in a way, just keep my head down and do the thing that I love.
Hmm.
But I think that there are another huge passion of mine is seeing other people grow and assisting and helping them grow. And that's one of the reasons why I tried to launch this thing during the pandemic where, you can't really go to school for what it is that we do when it comes
That's
to
right.
designing for the marching arts. And so, and couple that with like the loneliness of the pandemic, right?
Hmm.
Like the physical loneliness being exaggerated. We talked initially, earlier about that professional loneliness that a lot of people experience in this activity.
Hmm.
So I think that even aggravated it even more. So I saw this need of creating community
Yeah.
around learning how to do this, not just learning, but like helping each other.
Yes.
And so for me, the next step is to continue to build that, to reach more people,
Hmm.
to find ways to, you know, create opportunities for those people that see themselves contributing to the marching arts
Hmm.
as a major staple of their lives and making it a part of their own legacy.
Yep.
Like, okay, cool. That person exists that wants to do this. How can I be a part of their journey? How can I help
Yeah.
them? And how can I get them? I've been doing this, like I said, it's been 10-year anniversary of my website, and which is sounds amazing, but there is a part of me where it's like, well, I think I could have done a lot more in that last 10 years
Mm.
that I only know about now as I'm
Hmm.
growing and connecting and
Yeah.
learning and doing other business self-reflection. And so there's a part of me where it's like, okay, well, if I can shave off a year or two of somebody else's growth, that would be pretty amazing, right?
Hmm. Yep. We find our greatest purpose serving the person we used to be. I love that. And that's something you and I have spoken a lot about, and our passion of some of the projects that you and I are starting to work together on mutually to help as many young performers as we can. I love
Yeah.
it. Love it.
I mean, that's the reason why we got into this in the first place is I didn't I never thought that I was going to go into this career to try to make a lot of money.
Hmm.
All I knew is I loved it and I loved how it made me feel, how I felt included when I was in it.
Hmm.
And I felt like I had a purpose. I
Hmm.
felt like other people relied on me and needed me to be
Hmm.
great.
Hmm.
And that gave me a sense of purpose. And this was when I was 15, 14.
Yeah.
And so there's other people out there. And this applies to a lot of different things like sports or music, dance, art, like so
Yeah.
many different things that are require um, team building and just being, like an important
Hmm.
part of a bigger thing,
Yes.
right? That this is how we find humanity. I mean, really, like when people ask, what's the meaning of life? And, well, I don't know if I have the answer to that, but I think it's in this realm. It's in
Yeah.
this cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
as it were.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%, man. Last question for you. Last question I ask every one of my guests here. Someone, in your industry, in your space, they're up and coming in the music world. They want to make a go at this. They look at you and they're like, man, if I could do what he did, that I would be, that's what I want to do. What what advice could you give them that if they were to implement, now keep in mind, listeners out there, keyword implement, because knowledge without implementation is useless. Okay. If they were to implement your knowledge, Kevin, your advice, what could they do that would make it impossible to fail?
It's a great question. So I'm going to take 10 seconds to think about that. Well, here's a broad stroke, and then I'm going to try to come up with an implementation. The broad
Yeah.
stroke is, the theme of that, the innocent ignorance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like just have a little bit of imagination as to what's possible.
Mm.
And so how I would implement that and how I did implement that initially was, it's one thing to have a plan and have goals and like to start checking those off. And if you have that clarity, rock it out, start checking those off. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't yet have clarity on what it is that you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
I think that you can take daily like imagination trips. Like, so for example, I'm going to build a website today. I'm just going to do it. So what does that look like? And just having like such like a weird, like very specific goal that maybe doesn't align with like long-term things. Because I personally, sometimes I get like, oh, I gotta have goals, I gotta have plans, I need a 5-year plan, I need a budget plan. It's like, that's kind of overwhelming. We all need to do that, and I need to do that. But if it's not going to make me move forward, then do something. Like, have that, like, okay, well, I need a website. Like, just build a website. Go to
Take
Google
action.
and build one for free.
Right.
And if it sucks, it sucks. But at least you like learned how to build something, and you might in that process like research, oh, well, I didn't like this website, so let me look at some other options, right? And I think that it requires a little bit of that, like jump and build your wings on the way down. And I know that that maybe doesn't feel like a daily implementation, but a lot of the things that I feel like we discover is you have to jump, you have to take a chance on something.
Yes.
And then if it doesn't work, that's okay. It's not the end, you know. You try something else.
Yeah. And that's how you learn what does work, is by learning what doesn't work. It's equally as important. Yeah, this is fantastic. Kevin, it's been absolutely a pleasure having you here, man. Now we're going to be throwing all of Kevin's links, social media, products up on the YouTube channel at robstein.tv. It's where you can find all of our episodes. Of course, you can stream these on all major platforms. But Kevin, for the listeners out there, maybe they're in the car, where can they engage with you? Where can they find you? How can they align with you?
Absolutely. My main music website business is projectrisemusic.com. And my educational website, where I, for those in the marching arts, designers, is prmworkshops.com. So Project Rise Music Workshops, PRM. And then, online, most of my handles are Kevin S. Shah. Okay. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. Connect with me. You can email me, kevin@projectrisemusic.com, and I'll happy to connect.
Perfect. And again, if you're listening, you're not watching this one again, head over to robstein.tv to actually get those links, or check out any of the streaming platforms. We're going to have those on there. Kevin, man, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, man. It's been a pleasure. For those that were listening, you don't know how lucky you are to have someone like Kevin on our podcast today to really be able to learn from. So soak it in, take advantage of it. Again, Kevin, thank you so much for coming today, man.
Thanks, Rob.